Hope you are all having a great day. My name is Anil Ramanini. I'm the charter member and executive director of TIE SoCal. Today's topic is innovation across the life sciences and NASA. It's my great pleasure to introduce our moderator. He has so many qualifications, amazing person, Dr. Atul Vardachari. He is the president of TI Houston. He is the managing partner at Fannin Innovation Studio. Prior to Fannin, Atul has served as president of US operations at Brilliance Life Sciences, India, and as president of Agnex, a late stage biotechnology company. Prior to that, he is a adjunct professor at multiple universities. Thank you, Dr. Atul. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Anil. Very generous of you. Thank you all for joining this first of two sessions that is showcasing Houston. Houston, of course, is well known as the energy capital of the world. And our second session, which starts in an hour, will discuss the energy industry. But what may not be quite as well known is the breadth of biomedical and engineering innovation that takes place in Houston, ranging from the world's largest medical center to NASA to J&J initiatives, including JLabs. We have, with some difficulty, given the many choices, we have selected 3 vignettes to share with you. We will start with a discussion about JLabs, followed by a pumps and pipes discussion, which is a unique partnership between medicine, the energy sector, and NASA. And finally, a discussion of innovation at the Texas Medical Center. Please post your questions. We will take what we can on the webinar, and we'll try to follow up on others offline. So to start us off, I would like to welcome Dr. Fiona Mack, the head of JLabs in Houston. Fiona wears multiple hats at JLabs, which she will share with you in a minute. Fiona came to the JLabs role with deep experience in both innovation and industry. She has served as Senior Director of External Innovation at Ipsen and Director of External Innovation and Oncology Discovery at Roche, as well as playing an R&D role at Wyeth Oncology and Pfizer. Fiona did her undergraduate training at Cornell University, followed by a PhD in cell and molecular biology at the University of Pennsylvania. We're excited to have Fiona share the story of JLabs with you.
Thank you so much, Atul. And really, thank you so much for inviting me to highlight our organization here at the TI Global Summit. So just let me begin by sharing my screen. And over time, we require more and more innovation to really generate differentiated products that really are driving the value within across our various sectors, including therapeutics, medical devices, and even within consumer healthcare. And so we know from J&J's experience is that industry cannot do this alone, and that we hope to really define models where we have mutually beneficial for both industry needs and entrepreneur needs. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, we think that you have a lot of innovation. You have small, nimble teams that really are able to have very cost-effective initiatives to reach your end goals. This is something that industry certainly needs. From an entrepreneurial perspective, we think for you to be successful that you will require things that are the strengths of industry, which are having an ingrained infrastructure, access to capital, and certainly the expertise to bring your concept through to commercialization. So in order to do this, Johnson & Johnson actually has 4 pillars in which we utilize to access innovation across a variety of sectors, being consumer, health tech, medical devices, vision care, pharmaceuticals, and then a few organizations that actually breed cross-sector, such as our World Without Disease initiatives and our lung cancer innovation initiatives. To begin with, I will just begin to speak about sort of the first stage of this pillar of innovation, and that's the JLabs organization. So this is a life science incubator, which has 13 locations across the globe, and JPods, which are kind of embedded in other incubator spaces within North America. Our portfolio is quite vast with over 600 companies. And within that, we've actually, one of the reasons like companies would want to join JLabs is because they get access to our network of R&D expertise. within our organization and also with our variety of investment arms. So that helps us facilitate over 450 collaborations within the J&J network itself. Obviously, the incubator space is meant for kind of early stage companies. And so as they begin to progress, we have other methodology for accessing their innovation and supporting their growth. The next phase would be the innovation centers. We have 4 of these centers, life science, that are located within the hotspots across the globe, across the 3 continents. They are embedded within kind of their regional networks, really to understand what's going on in the hub of these ecosystems and access innovation in there. And they have a variety of flexible methods for establishing collaborations. Within the past 6 years, they've also done over 480 deals and have been able to deploy over $1 billion since 2013. While the innovation centers will facilitate sort of preclinical collaborations and preclinical deals, we also have a strategic investment arm referred to as the JJGC arm. So this is our corporate venture arm. They also have an extensive number of years of experience, 46 years plus. They made over 40 investments in 2019. And they partner quite closely with the innovation centers and also with JLabs to really form new companies and access new companies that are on the rise. Just last year, they deployed over $500 million in capital. The last of which of the 4 pillars would be our business development arm. So they're more focused on late stage deals, meaning supporting mid to late stage deals from any sources. They truly are the business development arm for Johnson & Johnson, for Janssen, the R&D organization, for medical device, and also for consumer care. Since they're more focused on late stage deals, they really would highlight things that we can do from a licensing, MA perspective, and do a lot of alliance management. They also have an extensive number of years of leading within these licenses and M&A deals across the R&D portfolio. So we really are, I think, one of the few companies that have sort of an end-to-end methodology for accessing and supporting innovation across a vast number of sector areas. So just to talk a bit more about our global network, given that this is the TIE Global Summit, just wanted to highlight our locations across the world. So particularly the JLabs organizations, I said we have 13 of us that span between the US, 1 in the Europe side, and also as far as in Shanghai. So we have 1 focus within the Asia Pacific region. Some of these are overlaid with what we have in our innovation centers. So we have 1 in California, Cambridge, US, also in London, and then again in Shanghai. And this doesn't also reflect all of the R&D organizations that we also have located throughout the world, in which you can also reach out to access innovation. So we truly have a global perspective because we really feel that these regions have high value and want to access the innovations in that space. I, of course, am located here in Houston, embedded within the Texas Medical Center. And we also have a Center for Device Innovation that's also located here within the TMC. That really helps us kind of capitalize on the medical device work that's going on within the region. So just a few reasons on why I've been attracted to the Texas region. You know, I recently took on this role just at the end of July, and there was a lot of promises from moving from my home in the New York area to Houston. So we certainly view this as a burgeoning life science cluster. There's a lot of potential regional hubs between what we're referring to as the Texas Triangle, which would be between Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Dallas. Within the state, there's a highly favorable business climate. And Houston itself is indeed the 4th largest city within the US. And it is a highly diverse, fast-growing population. You know, 1 in 4 of the residents here are foreign-born, and they've seen a 20% increase in new residents over the past decade. So it really is quite a vibrant community. We also know that it is a global destination for clinical care and medical research. So as Tom will certainly speak to you about, the TMC is the largest medical complex within the world, with over 54 institutions embedded within that. They have 10,000 plus hospital beds and see over 10 million patients encounters per year. What this culminates is really having them be, I believe, I'll highlight on the side, maybe the 2nd most clinical trials within the US. I think it's actually moved up to be at least the 2nd most clinical trials within the US, given all the resources that are available to really have clinical trials onboarded quite quickly to speed patient recruitment. From our portfolio perspective, we think that within our own JLabs, we have a lot of interest in oncology, data science, and medical devices. This is because there are a lot of prestigious institutions within the area that are focused on these particular topics, particularly computing and digital health, from MD Anderson, also from the Dell Medical Center. We know that there are at least 4 NCI designated cancer centers within this region, and there are a variety of economic initiatives such as CPRIT that are also trying to fund these particular focus on research within these areas, such as the oncology organization. As I said, we also have a Center for Medical Devices Innovation that is also co-located with us in JLab, and that allows us to do a lot of development within the medical device space. From a JLabs at TMC value proposition and portfolio, we think we're really centered within the heart of the TMC. We've developed a lot of infrastructure and equipment to support biotech and also the medical device institutions. We have a portfolio that's largely oncology, but also medical devices. And within just 2019, we also had 5 deals that were completed within J&J. So demonstrating that we are bringing value to the ecosystem, but also bringing value to the Johnson & Johnson organization as a whole. Just to give you a bit more of an idea of what is this JLab incubator space. So we harbor wet labs and private lab space. What is kind of key for early stage startups is that we actually provide all the operational management. So this allows you not to have to focus on equipment maintenance and contracts and safety guidelines. We have a strong facility that enables that for you, so you can really focus on the science and growing your company. We also provide a lot of shared equipment to kind of minimize your capital investment and able to utilize those resources for your company to grow. We have a variety of options, so really depending upon the stage of the company, we can certainly have dedicated benches and labs for those who require wet lab space. We have accompanying private offices or just a dedicated desk for some of your employees who may not need a full-fledged office from themselves. And then we certainly have a variety of other specialty labs. For example, we have concept labs that can be devoted to prototyping of medical devices. We also have those labs that are typical for bioscience research, such as biosafety hoods and chemical hoods that are necessary for live cell cultures or small molecule generation. And finally, in addition to the physical infrastructure that we provide, we also provide other resources to our JLabs residents, one of which is a resource hub. And here we sort of compiled a variety of resources, some of it being from equipment, but also all of the other resources that are necessary to run a lab effectively, lab supplies, but then also how you can grow your company, IT support, financial support, insurance. And many of these companies are giving discounts to JLab employees to access their products. And so we consolidate a lot of that for you to make it kind of a one-stop resource for your individual company. Another advantage of joining in JLabs is that we really do try to facilitate some of your interactions with the VC. We certainly try to introduce these companies to our own venture arm, the JJDC arm, but also we have a variety of Meet With series to increase the visibility of our high potential companies to investors both globally and locally. And finally, one of the biggest selling points for me is that the JLabs organization provides mentorship, getting you access to expertise and connections that can help support the growth of your company. Highlighted here are the few individuals that are part of our medical device institution, such as Ethicon. And we've also have representatives from our venture arm that are part of this organization, and then others that are within the R&D organization. So depending upon the needs of your company, we can match you with an appropriate JPAL to help you facilitate your individual milestones, and as I said, with the ultimate goal of graduating you successfully from the organization. And finally, we are part of the local ecosystem, so we do try to provide both educational networking program, both within our companies, but then also to expose them to the broader community. And now that we're more working in this virtual environment, we do a lot of global programming, which also is an intent to kind of highlight the strategic interests of the R&D organization and the sector areas. So finally, this kind of brings us to our co-creation model. So how can we partner? So we have, as I said, a variety of models for partnering, flexible deal structures, options for doing funding and investments. We incubate early stage companies. We can partner with collaborations with the R&D. And then for more later stage, really help you access expertise to reach commercialization. And this essentially goes across our three strong sectors of both consumer health, medical devices, and pharmaceuticals. And there's a lot of cross-sector initiatives. So we have a very large toolkit to really help accelerate collaborations within this space. Finally, our areas of interest, we can certainly go a bit more in depth into what the strategic interests of each one of the sectors are, but just to give you some general highlights, from our pharmaceutical groups, our therapeutic areas are immunology, neuroscience, oncology, cardiovascular metabolism, infectious disease, pulmonary hypertension, and then we have platforms that can be applied across the indications. We obviously have a medical device group with multiple companies that focus on surgery, orthopedics, intervention, and also vision care. Our consumer health is focused on self-care and skincare, and obviously digital health to be applied for that. And as I said, we had a few cross-sector initiatives, so those that kind of blend outside of pharmaceuticals and medical devices and consumer health to really help support health tech and data sciences, World Without Disease, which is focused on disease intervention and prevention, and also our lung cancer initiatives. So really, we certainly welcome you to make the connection. We can obviously meet up virtually at any of our local, regional, or global partnering meetings. Feel free to contact us at the email below to submit any of your ideas. We also have a variety of online challenges. So these quick fire challenges, looking for those who can solve very kind of specific needs within the medical institutes. And with that, the winners usually come out with some award, be that either funding or also maybe access to a JLab's membership. We encourage you to engage with us through social media. Feel free to follow us on Twitter or look at our website and you can get to know our leadership further there. And feel free to visit us across any of our locations across the globe. So once again, thank you, Atul, for the option to give a presentation here. And I welcome any questions that you may have received.
Great, thank you, Fiona. This is really exciting. What you have shared, and I don't see any questions yet. Do you all hear an echo, or is it okay? Okay, so I have not seen any questions yet, but I will follow up with you with any additional questions that we get. Fannin Innovation Studio is itself proud to be a JLabs company. Houston has an amazing R&D ecosystem, as you will hear about throughout the session. However, our commercialization has fallen short, especially when compared to biotech hubs like Boston. And JLabs and TMC and many other folks that you'll hear about have done a lot to contribute towards that. And Fannin itself is a Houston-based process innovation in life sciences with the goal of expanding the commercialization piece. And the role we play is complementary to the development and commercialization role from JLabs and TMC. Fannin was created a decade ago as a medical technology development company, drugs, devices, and diagnostics. And we are the most active early stage development group in Texas. We're backed by founders, family offices, grants, and institutional capital with almost $140 million in total development funding to date, and a combined staff of 57 people. Our portfolio of 13 investments ranges from projects to Series D funded companies. Our approach is to develop and de-risk early stage assets within our pool team, spinning it out at the appropriate time with outside funding and dedicated management. And we appreciate the support that we receive throughout the process, both from JLabs and from TMC, about which you will hear in a few minutes. So if anyone has any questions about this process innovation in life sciences commercialization, feel free to ping me. So now moving on to another unique and exciting initiative in Houston is our Pumps and Pipes program. Before joining Methodist, Stewart was a member of the faculty at Baylor College of Medicine, where he also served as Director of Surgical Innovation and Technology Development. Before Baylor, Stuart was at MD Anderson Cancer Center, both as a postdoctoral fellow and as an instructor. Stuart graduated from the University of Glasgow, then moved on to Dublin for his master's and PhD before moving to Rice University in Houston. And Pumps and Pipes is a truly unique multi-domain collaboration, and we're excited to have Stuart share it with you. So thanks for joining us, Stuart.
Thank you, Atul. Real pleased to be here today. And just so you know, I started at Houston Methodist with this Pumps and Pipes program, as well as other things in April of this year. It's quite an experience starting at a hospital during a COVID pandemic. So yeah, I'm just going to jump straight in. Share my slides here. Okay, so hello, I guess Madam Vat, it's Mr. Stuart. I am obviously Scottish and I'm trying to do what I can to keep the Scottish Gaelic language alive. So a little bit of Gaelic there for you. So as Atul briefly mentioned, I've been in the TMC now for 10 years, kind of diverse and broad background of engineering, innovation, basic science, and even music, funnily enough. And up until I started at Methodist, you know, we were really focusing on developing an innovation program within the Department of Surgery there. And currently, I'm as an Innovation Systems Engineer Director. We're pretty much just looking to launch new, exciting innovation initiatives. And Pumps and Pipes, which I'm going to get to, is really one of them. So again, I know Tom's going to talk about how big and beautiful the Texas Medical Center is, but it really is. There's nothing like it on the planet. So just keep that in mind. Houston Methodist Hospital, where I work. So it's the #1 hospital in Texas. It has many satellite hospitals as well, spanning the greater Houston area, such as Willowbrook, Baytown, the Woodlands, etc. And what you're looking at is our brand new Walter Tower. This is the most advanced and state-of-the-art cardiovascular center in the world. On the left-hand side there, we also have our research institute, which houses MITI, which I'm going to talk about. And again, just to re-emphasize one of my roles at Methodist, but before I got there, I was running the incubator at Baylor College of Medicine Department of Surgery for 4 years. And our real goal was just to develop new technologies, direct from concept to generating IP, to hopefully, getting startup companies formed around that. And a couple of devices are Tiny Stitch. So this is a laparoscopic microsuturing device for in utero fetoscopic surgery with Dr. Michael Belfort. And I know that Atul actually has some projects with Dr. Belfort already within Fannin Innovation Studios. And again, another device, for example, is what you see in the top right. It's our Corlyware device. So this is a mild hypothermia device to reduce positive margins in pancreatic cancer. So moving across to Methodist, we have this thing called MITI. It's the Methodist Institute for Technology, Innovation and Education. 35,000 square foot of training and development space dedicated to medical training. And I'm delighted to announce that my current supervisor, my boss, is now the Chief Medical Officer for MITI. His name is Dr. Alan Lumsden. He's director of the Baker Heart and Vascular Center. And like I said, he's a new CMO for MITI. So we're really looking forward to launching some new innovation projects together. And also at MITI, we have a thing called the Center for Rapid Device Translation, CRDT. So this is really opening the door to kind of the level of startups that, they have a device, but they really want to get that FDA approval, get those GLP, good laboratory practice studies done. And that's where the CRDT fits in. We will help you put together that GLP study. We'll bring the technology in and we can take it all the way to clinical trials and testing. A couple of examples of companies we actually have. So, we are working very closely, and I'm pleased to say, with companies such over at JLabs. I believe we have Victero Medical there, for example. And a lot of these companies have actually gone through Tom Luby's Accelerator Program at the TMC. So you can really get the sense that there's a very close working relationship between a lot of the entities here in the TMC. And that really makes for some great synergistic activities. Now, joining Methodist, there was one thing I realized that's missing, a final piece of the puzzle, and that's the ability to really generate in-house med tech. So that's, getting an idea from a surgeon or physician, clinician, and getting that prototype made. So that's the next thing in the pipeline for next year. Putting together this thing that we're calling the Innovation Systems Engineering Core. Looking at the standard biodesign process, you find your need, you screen the need, you then start generating concepts, and then you're looking to kind of develop your strategy and your business planning. That's what our IC core, as we're calling it, that's where our core is really going to be kind of focused on, taking that concept, finding that problem and getting that prototype there. And again, we can engage with all our TMC and local partnerships such as NMED, which is a program where we have MD students that are also getting engineering degrees as well. We're trying to team up again with Tom's biodesign program, you know, because these biodesign folk, they need problems. We have problems, so let's work together, make that happen. And then when we get to this point, you know, we want to start looking at engaging with the startup community, you know, by the Rice Business Plan competition, likes of the Tool and Fannin Innovation Studios, you know, looking for those SBIR, STTR grants, etc. But again, a key player in this is pumps and pipes. So what is pumps and pipes? Well, it's a uniquely Houston approach. And I've got a little video here. Video says more than a million words. I'm going to play.
This is about lighting the match and creating the fire of interest and innovation. It's the meaning of the curious. This is a platform at which we can get together to share ideas and to share concepts. The solution really is the other person's toolkit, making your knowledge transfer between industries, energy, aerospace, and medicine. This is called pumps and pipes.
So they are just a little teaser there, give you a kind of overview what pumps and pipes is. And again, this started back in 2007, literally from a chance encounter on an airplane ride between Dr. Lumsden over here on the left and Dr. Bill Klein. So as you know, I spoke earlier, Dr. Lumsden is our director for the Heart and Vascular Center. And he was on a plane flight with Dr. Bill Klein, who at the time was vice president of drilling operations for ExxonMobil here in Houston. And they started chatting and they realized that there's some really interesting similarities between pumping blood and pumping oil and gas. So, you know, they kind of came up with that name, pumps and pipes. But when they look at it in the context of Houston, and this is what makes it uniquely Houston approach, we are the energy capital center of the world, okay? With the likes of ExxonMobil, Halliburton, Chevron, etc. We have the largest medical center in the world. And we have NASA on our doorstep, the Johnson Space Center. So you bring all these things together and you have pumps and pipes. And again, Dr. Lumsden mentioned in the video, it's really all about exploring your neighbor's toolkit. So, you know, for example, you know, we have Dr. Lumsden there. There's very little that he can learn from fellow cardiovascular surgeons. But if you get him in a research lab, or if you take him to Siemens Healthineers site, take him over to JLabs, etc., that there's a lot of knowledge and innovation that you become exposed to. So again, you see what's in your neighbor's toolkit, and you can start solving problems. So I think one of the highlights that we had back in 2013, we actually had the NASA lunar rover and the Robonaut make an appearance at Houston Methodist. I mean, you can see this thing here was brought in pretty much almost in an articulated truck there. Funnily enough, we have the Robonaut who's actually controlling the Da Vinci robot. You know, so a robot controlling a robot. I thought it was an interesting concept. And again, you know, we have kind of events such as we're at NASA Johnson Space Center there. You have the neutral buoyancy lab in the background. Again, it's what astronauts use to train for microgravity conditions. And again, you know, this is a global Congress, you know, the Thai Congress. So we have international partners. One of our biggest ones is Pumps and Pipes Norway, which established there about 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm delighted to announce that we're in the process of also starting a sister institute in the United Kingdom for our Pumps and Pipes UK. Now, we literally yesterday had our annual event. It was called Pumps and Pipes 14 2020 Vision. And, you know, given the COVID-19 pandemic, we really used this year as a means to reboot, reimagine, and completely relaunch our program. Obviously, it was virtual, so we used Hopin, which is an interactive online platform. And again, it was yesterday. So just to give you a quick overview of that, you know, one of our transition pivots was really going from pumping oil and gas applications to pumping electrons. Now, Houston is the energy capital of the world, but it needs to be the transition energy capital of the world, okay? That's why you have the likes of Halliburton Labs, and Greentown Labs and the Rice Alliance, creating these green tech renewable energy accelerators. And again, now we have Houston, the ION, on the scene as well. And Houston has developed its own climate action plan. So you have all these players now in Houston. So it's just right that Pumps and Pipes was able to transition and pivot into that area. We also launched our incubator. So again, we want to really work on getting those concepts in concepts in energy, aerospace, and medicine, and actually derive them down into a working proof of concept principle. In two of our projects, it is what it is, it's Texas Monroe. So can we build a mountain, right, out of recyclable material? It sounds absolutely ludicrous, okay? But put it in the context of JFK, when he gave that speech, you know, we're going to go to the moon, okay? If it can be done, it can be done here in Houston. And another project we got is mini fuel. So we are converting plastics into liquid fuel. And again, this is with our collaborators up at Texas A&M. So in regards to our medical section, we used Pumps and Pipes yesterday as a means to launch our new Robotics Institute. So this is the Houston Methodist Institute for Robotics, Imaging and Navigation. Methodist has pretty much every single robotic surgical assisted platform that's FDA approved, from Da Vinci systems to Maser X, and we're in line to get the new Johnson & Johnson systems when they start coming out. So what we're doing now is we are looking at all those procedures that are performed. We're looking for procedures that could be performed with some technological adaptations. And if the technology doesn't exist, we use the Pumps and Pipes network to make a robot that will make it happen. And we're also bringing in our imaging capabilities. We have a unique partnership with Siemens. So we're bringing in this kind of hybrid operating room approach. We're also bringing in our artificial intelligence collaborators as well. And here's a little quick video on Mirren, or should I say the Institute for Robotics. There we go. So we have some very exciting plans for 2021. There we go. And finally, you know, obviously COVID-19 has impacted every single person on the planet. So a big push yesterday was to highlight everything we've done at Houston Methodist in terms of innovation within that area. And we have here Dr. Faisal Masood, who is the director of the infectious disease unit here that are dealing with all our COVID-19 patients. And you can see here back in March, they had to spring into action, develop these aerosol boxes for intubation and bronchoscopy. Now, finally, that's all I have to say. I am going to close with a 2-minute video. And this is, again, highlighting Pumps and Pipes.
In the early 20th century, when two giants from distinctively separate disciplines collaborated on the development of an extracorporeal circulation device, I doubt they realized how extraordinarily unique their partnership was. At this moment, we are positioned in a fast-paced world where technology is advancing and globalization increasing, where distances get shorter, competition increases, and expectations are more demanding. A time when we need to make the best use of knowledge and look at each challenge from different points of view. A time for transdisciplinary integration of the sciences. A time when convergence innovation is needed most. Innovative leaders are curiously optimistic as they dare to take risks. And when leaders work together, the capacity to innovate increases exponentially. The world's most complex problems require convergence innovation. Through this approach, we have the ability to live longer, foster a better quality of life, and preserve this tiny rock we call Earth. It's why we are here, for the benefit of all.
Okay, and that's the end of my talk. I hope I've kind of covered and highlighted what Pumps and Pipes is. And we have our social media tags there and the hashtags, etc. So please feel free to drop me a line and get more information on our website. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Stuart. This is just amazing. Congratulations on completing your 14th annual symposium and all the progress you all have made over the years. Thanks for sharing. Both Fiona and Stuart mentioned the Texas Medical Center, and we now have the pleasure of hearing from Dr. Tom Luby, who is the director of TMC Innovation, overseeing all of the innovation efforts at TMC. Prior to this role, Tom was at Johnson & Johnson Innovation, where he played multiple roles, including as new ventures lead and as head of JLabs, about which you heard a few minutes ago. Prior to J&J, Tom spent 14 years in various R&D and business development positions, most recently as Senior Director of Research Ventures at Shire. Tom received a Bachelor of Science in Biology from the State University of New York and a PhD in Immunology from the Sackler School of Biomedical Sciences at Tufts University. And he is another person who's moved to Houston, and we're excited about what he's done and look forward to hearing about the Texas Medical Center.
Thanks to the organizers here at TIE for giving me a chance to talk a little bit about TMC Innovation. What I thought I'd share a little bit today is the work that we're doing at TMC Innovation. Both Fiona and Stuart kindly, dropped the hints about Texas Medical Center being the largest medical center in the world, and that's very true. And they flashed some of the numbers, and I think people always think about the medical center as a great place to come for some of the best clinical care in the world. Stuart highlighted some of that's happening at Houston Methodist, but other great institutions like MD Anderson, Texas Children's, Baylor College of Medicine. People come from around the world to access that clinical care. And additionally, it's also a place that's a global powerhouse in basic life science R&D as well, always in the top tier of total grant funding coming to the state of Texas winds up here in Houston. We've certainly been the sort of beneficiaries of some of the basic science discoveries in terms of how they've translated into clinical care. Again, nicely highlighted in one of Stuart's videos. One thing that when you look at the Houston landscape, and Atul mentioned this a little while ago, is it's not known as a great place for life science startups. I came out of the Boston market before I came here to Houston, certainly a life science powerhouse in terms of translating intellectual property, basic science understanding into life science startups, and then subsequently into products that go on to help patients everywhere in the world. And same is true here in the States on the West Coast as well. So, the idea around TMC Innovation was to create an opportunity to nucleate additional and grow healthcare startup density directly here in Houston. And so we think about TMC Innovation really in a couple of buckets. There are the areas that we are very core in and our current strategic focus, and then a couple of areas which we anticipate good growth over the next couple of years as we move forward. In our core area, we recruit, and we fund healthcare startups here in Houston. TMCX is our brand accelerator, if you will, focused on med device and digital health companies. And that's the vehicle that we use to recruit companies from around the world to come to Houston to get engagement with the hospitals, our corporate partners, as well as our vast array of advisors and clinicians that can help think about their products or their solutions in a way that allows them to be practically integrated into standard of care today, and for many of those, change the way standard of care is viewed looking forward. So I'll talk a little bit about the stats around TMCX in a little bit. We also form our own companies here in Houston as well through our biodesign program, which Stuart kindly mentioned as well. This is where we recruit individuals. We don't recruit companies, and we have those individuals spend time in the hospitals, understanding unmet needs, really where new solutions could be gratefully impactful from a patient perspective, from a provider perspective, or even from a payer's perspective. And then once understanding those needs at a really intimate level, I'll develop a solution for that, and then launch a company off of that solution and look to commercialize that in the broader marketplace. And then finally, the other part of our core strategic focus is our venture fund, an early stage life science seed fund. It's a $25 million evergreen fund, really focused in the seed to Series A space, and with an exquisite focus on med device and digital health companies as well. And really, those two areas define the opportunity for us to provide the most value to our startups, to the member institutions, to our corporate partners. We think about preclinical medical device companies as ones that we can be very impactful to, either through our accelerator and creating relationships with the hospitals, obviously creating companies in that space through our biodesign program, or providing capital and advisory services through our venture funds to those companies. We also focus in the digital space. We think about early stage SaaS companies, looking to help them identify clinician champions, to run pilots, to help them understand the reimbursement landscape here in the United States from some of our reimbursement experts here, as well as other opportunities for them to learn how their solution, could be integrated into a broader commercialization platform. Moving forward, we're focused in two new areas for us. One is therapeutics. That's not an area that we've traditionally spent time engaged with, but we will. We were awarded a grant from a state level funding agency here called CPRIT, and that was money to launch a new accelerator focused on early stage investigators that have early stage programs in oncology therapeutics, so cancer drugs, as well as early stage startup companies in the same space. And we partnered with that with a couple of our regional partners here, UTMB, one of the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, and the Gulf Coast Consortium, which is a Texas-wide system of core facilities that are focused on promoting education around drug development and discovery, as well as core services that allow for early stage investigators who are looking to progress their project access to some of the standard drug development, drug discovery resources that you need. Our next sort of foray will be back in the med device sector. We're working on creating a med tech startup studio, which will be focused on experienced female founders that have the opportunity to take their ideas and start a company around them in some of the same sort of way that we think about biodesign, but without the needs finding, really focused on individuals with a set of experiences that already understand a real unmet need and and get access to the resources required to start their own company. So those two buckets is how we think about TMC innovation and where we can provide value in our core areas, med device and early stage digital health companies, either through recruiting companies to Houston through our accelerator, forming companies through our biodesign program, or funding them through our venture funds. And then in our sort of future state, we'll start to create value propositions for early stage oncology therapeutic companies, as well as women-led med device companies. We support these core and our future strategic elements through these three buckets. So we have a strong community here, one that we continue to develop. We need the people and their expertise to be available to the startups, to the member institutions, to our corporate partners in order for us to really provide value and allow the projects within these startups to move forward. So we certainly spend a lot of time thinking about who is the right person, the right expertise that they have, and bringing them to the startups when they're needed at the right time. So very tailored advisory that in many cases turns into longer term relationships between the startups and the advisors. We have a set of resources. Some of these things that I've already described, certainly capital as part of what we think, but resources in terms of introductions to contract research organizations or clinical support. Obviously, the opportunity to work closely with our corporate partners, which include AT&T, Fiona, and J&J, as well as ABB Robotics, as we move forward. Again, really understanding that it's not just capital that startups need to be successful, but tools that they have to get access to in order to move their programs forward. And then finally, space. We have about 300,000 square feet of space in a former Nabisco cookie factory where TMC Innovation sits. And that space is really important to bring people together in the community. And we think about that pre and post pandemic. We're all, most of us are home at the moment. But it needs to be great space. It needs to be seamless in order for people to focus on their work. We have to do things to activate the space, to bring people together. Our corporate partners are embedded in the space with us. And so when we're back on the other side of the pandemic, it's a real hub of activity and intellectual curiosity that allows for people to engage pretty seamlessly and make connections that they otherwise would not if they weren't showing up at a reasonable time in our place. This is the team that really helps run the core and the future for TMC Innovation. We have Lance, Sammy, Anna, and Jason focused on our TMC Accelerator, as well as our biodesign programming. We have an ACT team, Amit, Leah, Ashley, and Sarah, who are growing that program, launching it, standing it up, and accepting our first cohort of 15 oncology products and companies in January of next year. And then backstopping with operations and ventures fund support. On the right side is Diana, Alexis, Emily, who's focused on our community and making sure the right people are in the right place at the right time, as well as JR, who helps lead our venture fund as we move forward. So a small team, but very focused on the core strategic areas and the focused growth opportunities that are in front of us. And then finally, TMC Innovation has been in place for just a little over 6 years now. And through our X Accelerator, we've recruited now, if we include our latest one, over 180 companies to Houston, many of them from around the world to our place. And many of them stay in Houston once they develop a strategic and important relationship to their overall success as a startup. We've launched 7 companies out of our biodesign program, and some of these companies are now in the clinic testing their solutions in humans. We've made 15 investments through our venture fund. We continue to be active supporting our portfolio companies as well as looking at new investments as we move forward. Our accelerating cancer therapeutics, our first foray into therapeutics, will launch its first cohort in January 2021. We're finalizing what that cohort will look like, and we'll be announcing that probably just after the new year. And the space, the former cookie factory, when we're post-pandemic, we have over 130 companies in residence there, lots of employees, really a significant amount of visitors. We try and keep it a very active, engaged place for people to make sure that when they come, they're guaranteed to run into somebody that really could make a difference to how they think about the world and how they think about their particular solution. And as I mentioned, our corporate partners are embedded in that space with us. So, I'll leave you with this greatest, it's the largest medical center in the world, one of the best places to come for clinical care, and, been a powerhouse of early stage life sciences R&D for a number of years. And, our small, but hopefully really impactful contribution is to grow the startup density, life science startup density here in the great city of Houston. Thank you again for the opportunity to highlight a little bit of the work that we're doing at TMC Innovation.
Great. Thanks so much, Tom. This is amazing. And we appreciate all of the opportunities to collaborate with you both personally and institutionally. One question that's come up, all right, and I think we have time for a question. If others have others, let me know. Houston's actually is well known for some of our amazing institutions, whether it's in MD Anderson or Texas Children or the Texas Heart Institute, which has kind of been the source of amazing innovations in the cardiovascular space, and Methodist, et cetera, et cetera. So how do all of those fit in with the Texas Medical Center?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and one that I could talk about for 15 minutes, but I'll say it as simply as possible. The Texas Medical Center is the campus on which all of these institutions reside. So it's a 1,500-acre campus, and the institutions literally that were just described, as well as others, literally sit right next to each other. And so, the medical center manages the land and all the infrastructure around it, as well as provides opportunities for collaboration in particular areas. Certainly in innovation, as I just described, we focus on driving collaboration in clinical research. And we've also focused on driving great collaboration across the pandemic response that we've had here here in Texas, as well as obviously around the world. And
so, a question which I know nobody has a good answer to. What's your perspective on the timing for us to be past the current situation with COVID?
Yeah, that is such a great question. Obviously, our fellow scientists and entrepreneurs have done a great job in creating the vaccines in record time for us to all be able to benefit those throughout the course of 2021. How they'll roll out, when they'll be available to each one of us, is a lot of uncertainty around that right now. But we certainly feel like the conversation has changed from if this would ever end to when this will end. And we hope that the second half of 2021 looks a lot different than the first half.
Yeah,
right.
And just I'm in there, speaking from Houston Methodist standpoint. So the Pfizer vaccine is on our way as we speak to the Texas Medical Center, and it will be dished out to majority of the hospitals there. Majority of that going to tier 1 people working directly in healthcare with COVID-19 patients. So I think it's going to be a staggered process. Each institute will have its own kind of mechanics and logistics pathway of handing out that vaccine. But again, the Pfizer vaccine is on its way. And you saw today in the UK, it was the first ever person to take that vaccine, a 90-year-old lady. So it's happening.
That's amazing. So again, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Fiona. Appreciate all of you participating in the showcase. I'd like to also thank the Global Summit organizers and Samia Hassan, our executive director, for pulling this together. And finally, a special thanks to all of you watching. As you may have gathered, and as Stuart mentioned and Tom alluded to, we have overlap as well as amazing collaboration across the many institutions in Houston, something to which I can personally attest. And that is part of what makes Houston such a unique and amazing place. So thank you all for joining the showcase. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions you may have. We do have our second part of our showcase, which is showcasing energy, coming up right after this. And of course, we would welcome a visit from any of you all to Houston. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.